welcome back to Cache Canada Chats. I'm London Westy. Lyric Lass is upstairs enjoying a little bit of quiet time. And as Dougie B, our guest tonight, can attest, she was singing a little bit of her lyrical notes because she is in a Celtic choir. So she's just upstairs. She might join us a little bit later. Hello to everybody that's joined us so far. I see one of our patrons, Amy Mary. And Bulking 649, good evening. Steve Haynes, hello. The Hello Oil Z69, good to see you. And Linda C. And of course, Doug Belanger, he's in there. Hi, there's our guest again. Are we going to be talking about Cache Tour tonight?
No, we're going to be talking about Project GC tonight.
All right.
Something a little different.
Yeah, we have something new because somebody asked a question about it. And then I thought, that would make a great subject for a talk. So,
well, I think Dave, it's actually a great subject for a whole bunch of talks.
Oh yeah.
So what we're going to see tonight is an introduction to some of the features of Project GC. I'm not going to dig into each of the things we look at on the screen tonight because Project GC has a wide variety of features. And most of the features are very, very deep. Excuse me.
I brought up on what you had sent me. So this is for everybody that's watching now, live or on recorded. This is the things that you had suggested to discuss tonight.
Yeah, we're going to try and get through this list. I don't know how long it's going to take. I tend to talk a lot. The last two, the last two live streams went on for I think almost 2 hours in each case.
Yeah.
So
we'll try to rein you in.
We'll try to rein me in. So I've asked Dave if I'm going long, just give me a note, and we'll cut it off at after number 6 if we have to. So tonight we're going to talk about authenticating. We're going to talk a little bit about membership and the differences between a paid and a non-paid member of Project GC. We're going to talk about a couple of features like profile stats, statistics, which are different than profile stats, the map compare feature, challenge checkers, and if we have time, we'll talk about first defined information as well as the virtual GPS. And at the end, I'll list some other features. Now, the intention here is not to be a deep dive into each and every topic that we go into. The intention here is to give everybody an introduction and then allow things themselves.
Sorry, I cut you off.
Give everybody an introduction and then let people dive into these things themselves.
Nice. That's
okay.
Good. So we want to mention that, of course, tonight's subject is Project GC. And it's something that a lot of, I think, I've used it for a long time, and I don't think I use it to its fullest. But a lot of people are, well, what's Project GC? What do you mean? Or, you see questions on geocaching web or Facebook pages all the time. People, well, just go to Project GC. So this will help them when they get that answer if you've never used this platform before. And to make sure that everybody knows, Project GC is completely is funded by donations from folks like us. Cache Canada, we recently gave a donation to Cache Tour. They do the same thing, and we're going to be giving a donation to Project GC as well. And I did contact the folks at Project GC, and they were kind enough to offer Cache Canada the ability to give away 3 one-year memberships to Project GC, which is and Doug, you could probably talk about this, as opposed to just a off-the-street membership. You're just going to play around with it, and then what you could get into. Maybe this is in your other features. I don't know what you can get if you're a paid member.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in topic number 2, membership, and we'll go into a little bit about what a paid member can do, but you'll see the URL, and anybody can go to the website and look under membership and see all the features of being a paid member.
Cool. All right, so I'm going to play something for you before we dive into number 1, and this is just recognizing Project GC. They were very, very good. They got back to me very quickly. So we're going to be giving away, as I said, 3 memberships to Project GC. So here we go. Just going to share this with you, and then we'll dive right in. There you go. The geocaching tool that all geocachers should have. And that, if you saw the number of things that were popping up on the bottom there, that is just a minute selection of the things that Project GC can do for you. All right, so let's dive right in. Topic number 1 is authenticating. If you don't do this, you can't get very far.
Well, that is absolutely correct, Dave. And what I'm going to do is share my screen. Just give me a second to get that set up. Share screen.
Stop screen. Okay.
2. All right. So hopefully everybody can see my web browser with Project GC on it.
Yep.
All right. So, for everybody's edification, if you have not used Project GC before, you do need a computer with a web browser. You can use this from your mobile phone as well with a web browser. The URL is https://project-gc.com. It's important to have that dash in there. All right. So our first topic today is authenticating. As you can see from my web browser, I'm at the Project GC main page, and I really don't have a lot of options on here. I've got a message that says, please authenticate us with your Groundspeak account to get access to a lot more features. And then up in the top right, there's a button that says Authenticate. I'm going to switch over to the geocaching tab, and for the purposes of the authentication demonstration, I'm actually using my wife's account on geocaching. So you can see up here in the top right, it's signed in as P. Karen. That's my wife. So we are already signed into geocaching. We need to do that first. And then we come back over to projectgc.com, and it says Authenticate. Very straightforward. It brings up another screen. It says it's going to use the Geocaching Live API to authenticate. We click Authenticate one more time, and it goes off to the geocaching website and says, are you going to authorize projectgc.com to access geocaching using your account? We agree. And after a few seconds, Project GC comes back. I'm just going to close this Did You Know? And now we are authenticated. So up here in the top right, you can see that it says P. Karen. So it's basically synchronized from the geocaching account, P. Karen, and it's now authenticated into Project GC as P. Karen. This is very important because one of the main features of Project GC is to get statistics about you. There are a lot of other features, but a lot of people get introduced to Project GC by getting statistics about them. What I'm going to do is switch over to another web browser now, and I'm going to show you my geocaching profile. And the reason I'm going to show you this is because a lot of people, this is the first time they learn about Project GC, is they're looking in somebody else's profile. We just have to give it a minute. And as they scroll down, they see this kind of statistical information. So you see this information on the screen, and they say, wow, how do I get that information? This is Project GC's profile statistics. So we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. So first topic, authenticating, very straightforward. You do need to authenticate in order to get any functionality. You don't need to be a paying member in order to authenticate. We're going to talk about that in a second. You can do quite a few things with Project GC as a non-paying member. All right, so regardless of whether you want to pay for membership or be a non-paying member, you do have to authenticate.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to the second topic now, which is membership. Let's switch back to P. Karen's profile. Up here in the top left, there's a home drop-down menu, and we're going to scroll down to membership. When I scroll down here to membership, it allows you to go in and select membership if you want to pay for it. But most importantly, so please take note of this URL or this menu option, Home Membership. You can scroll down and you can see all the membership features if you become a paying member. Things like multi-map compare, route builder, virtual GPX, friends, discover trackables. There is a significant number of features for paying members. On top of that, two other things. One, ads are removed for paying members. So if you're a non-paying member, at certain screens, you're going to see ads. If you're a paying member, there are no ads. As well, there's a statement here on the membership page that says there's no plans to remove any content that are currently available to everyone and make it available only to paying members. However, most new features will be for paying members only. So from time to time, Project GC does bring out some new features, and sometimes some incredible new features that people love. Most of the time, those are for paying members. Membership is not terribly expensive. It's $24 US per year. So you see here there are options. You can pay in euros, US dollars, or SEK, and you can select 1, 2, 3, or 5 years. So if you select more than 1 year, you get a slightly better deal.
Yep.
All right. The other thing about paying membership is if you decide to become a paying member, or if you're lucky enough to win membership from a contest, or for example, today there's some paid membership that's going to be up for grabs. It's cumulative on top of your existing membership. So if you've already paid for, say, 3 years, and you were to win 1 year of membership tonight, that would be tacked on to your existing membership and added to basically extend your date by another year.
That's correct. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So Dave, before I move on, did you have any other questions or points with respect to membership?
One of the reasons I first got the paid membership was when I started placing challenge caches. A non-paid membership, you can only check 10 times in a checker before you can't do it anymore. So when you're setting up, especially in Ontario, when you're setting up a challenge cache, you need to have 10 people from the province that can satisfy the challenge on top of yourself. So if you were to check 10 times, then you're done. If you wanted to put another challenge cache up that day, you wouldn't be able to. So I was doing a lot of challenge caches. I have over 50, and I was easily exhausting my 10 picks per day. So I just signed up. It's not, it was $29 US. It's like $38 Canadian. So it's like a Starbucks coffee a month for a year. It gets you the membership. But that's how I started, was just with that. And then you find out there's so many other things that you could, hey, I didn't know you could do that. Well, you can if you're a paid member. They have so many more features.
Yeah, for me, paid membership was around the challenge checkers. It was around the virtual GPS that I hope we'll be able to talk to later on today. It was around removing some of the limits. And most importantly for me, there's a significant difference in how Project GC updates statistics for anybody. If you are a non-paying member, your geocaching statistics will be updated on Project GC once per week. If you're a paying member, your statistics will be updated every day. So there were times when I was trying to get a challenge validated. Do I qualify for a challenge? And my statistics had not updated. Or I wanted to get my most current statistics on, say, farthest north or farthest south cache after having just found one. And my statistics weren't updating in a timely way. And once I decided to pay for membership, my statistics were updating overnight, which was much better for me.
And Balking 649 brings up a good point, is that paid members help to keep the page available for non-paying members, because it is only funded through our memberships. So. That's
right. It's funded through the memberships, and for non-paying members, they don't have to provide any payment. They do have to put up with ads, which is the other vehicle that Project GC has for funding, but that certainly doesn't cover the bills. Far and away, it's the membership, I would say, that they get benefit from. And honestly, the more we help contribute to Project GC, the smoother the platform is, and the more stability we have, right? The likelihood is that it'll keep running, it'll keep adding new features, the performance will be good or even better in the future. So certainly, I encourage everybody to consider paid membership for this. It's an amazing tool, and we're going to get into more of what that tool can do right now.
Cool. All right.
So let's talk about profile stats. Now remember, I'm in P. Karen's profile, and P. Karen is a non-paying member. All right. We're going to take a look at P. Karen's profile stats, and then we'll switch over to my profile stats. I am a paying member. We're going to take a look at some of the differences. All right. So first of all, you can see here that I've got some ads from Bell as a non-paying member. We're just going to skip past those ads, and we're going to see the basic profile stats that come up. So there's some tabs across the top: finds, milestones, hides, maps, badge gen, and souvenirs. Again, I'm not going to get into the details of all the statistics in here. There are quite a few, but there's great statistics that you can find in here for any individual who's permitted their stats to show up, like how many consecutive days do they have with fines, or what's the highest or lowest elevation of their fine, those types of things. And although we're looking at our own profile stats, we can actually look at other people's profile stats as well, if they've not restricted it. Okay, so you can restrict if you're a paying member. You can restrict what other people see. But let's get London Westie's profile stats and just show that you can see somebody else's profile stats as well. So because Dave is a paying member, he has a few other tabs. So you can see he has an FTF tab, he has a challenges tab, and he has a lab caches tab. So as we scroll down here, we can see that the numbers have changed. This is all Dave's stats. So if we wanted to see the most number of states that Dave found in a day, it was 7 on January 2nd of this year. Oh,
What?
there you go.
Wait a minute. That's not right.
Isn't it?
Huh.
Were you in Wisconsin, Ohio, Maine, Vermont, Ontario, Texas, and Tennessee?
Nope.
Well, isn't that interesting?
Wow, that's amazing. Huh.
2021 0102. All right.
We got a glitch.
Well, we'll have to call that out.
Huh.
But the point is, there's a huge number of statistics in here, whether it's difficulty in terrain, type. We scroll down farther, we can see things like the way to get to your DT81 chart. You know, here's the caches that Dave used to fill up his DT81. You can find favorite points of caches that you found, the oldest caches that you found. There's just a huge number of statistics in this very first tab, and that's not the only tab. So I do encourage you to authenticate to Project GC and to explore this statistics information. You're going to find a lot of information about yourself and perhaps information about others as well. So for example, we can see here that David's found 611 lab caches. We can see the date. We can actually see the list of lab caches that Dave has found. So I won't go through all 600. Please do go through and take a look at that.
So Roger asked, were those challenges? That could be, but I haven't been in the States in 2 years. And I looked up my own stats too, and it does say that. But there's a question or a...
I see that, yeah.
A little question thing that you, but I click on it and nothing happens.
Yeah. So we'll have to look into that one.
Yeah, there's something funny about that. I could ask them to look into it.
It's unusual, but it's unusual to have a glitch like that.
Yeah, this is it says most counties in a day, and this would show what we did in February of 2020 before the COVID really started hitting. So that was 15 counties in a day on the 22nd of September, and that was as we were traveling through Indiana. So
there you go.
So yeah, I think my stats had challenges listed. It did have a challenges tab, and that lists challenge caches that I've signed into, I think. Well, if you look on the challenge tab, there's a lot of information on there. There's graphs and charts and all kinds of stuff. I don't know if you.
We're
can
going to
show
get to
that.
challenges a little later in the
Okay.
broadcast.
All right.
So I switched over to my profile. So we'll go to most states in a day. It shows 8 on the 2016, July 20th, which was a road trip that I took with a few of our geocachers from Peel region, where we went from Ontario, south around Lake Erie, and then over to Wisconsin. We cached eight states/provinces in a day. Very valuable tool. Very much encourage everybody to look at it. I'm going to show you again how to get to it. So if you're at home, so as soon as you authenticate or open up projectgc, you'll see this dashboard. My profile stats is the first button on the left. Brings you right into my profile stats. And if you want to look at somebody else, you can type that name in here. So I'm going to type my wife's name in. Really important note, wherever you're typing in a profile name on projectgc, don't hit enter at the end. Even if you type the whole name in, select it from the drop-down menu. Very important. All right. So
Okay.
profile stat.
Why is that important?
Why is that important? So let's look at my name. You can see when I type Dougie B, for some reason there's 4 different Dougie Bs in here. But if I don't select one, and let me back out of that for a second. Well, that's not a good example. It's not doing it now.
You could accidentally pick somebody else.
Well, you could pick something that doesn't work. So
yeah.
So I hit that. It worked this time. Yeah, it's proving me wrong. My experience is that if you just type something in and hit enter, that you run the risk of it not actually bringing up. It just brings up an error. So best practice, always select it from a drop-down menu.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So profile stats are about your individual statistics or the individual statistics of somebody else. We're going to move on to statistics now, which are not about necessarily you as an individual. So if you look up here, there is a statistics drop-down menu. I'm just going to hold that open for a while so that you can all absorb all of the various menu options that are in here. There's just a plethora of statistics that you can find.
So much.
So there's an overview which will give you some general insights into caching statistics by country. You can change the country. There's another link in here to your profile stats, some other information about you. But then there's information about caches. All right, which caches are top logged, top favorited. We'll show in a second how you can actually filter some of this to look at a given country, a given province or state, or even a given region. There's stats about trackables. There's stats about finders. So for example, if you wanted to determine who is the top finder of geocaches in Canada, you would open up the statistics menu and click on top finders. And then from there, you could find out who is the top finder in Canada. All right. There's also hide stats and overtime. So what I'm going to do is show a couple of the statistics in here. So let's look at cache stats and top favorites. So this might be something you would look at if you're planning a trip and you wanted to think about favorite caches and you wanted to see what were the top favorite caches in Ontario. You'd open up this menu, and basically you're putting in 2 kinds of information. The first is a profile name. Here's another little trick. Wherever it says profile name, if you click on this button to the right, it'll populate the profile name with whoever you're authenticated as. Okay. So you put in the profile name, and then when you find that, it'll give you insight, in this case, into the top favorite caches that you've found. You can determine, have I already found it or have I not found it? Then you also put in a cache location. So because I've set my profile as being in Canada, it gives me this little button. I can quickly select Canada rather than having to scroll down through a
Oh,
drop-down
okay.
list.
And
Okay,
you can leave the profile name blank.
you could leave the profile name blank.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, let's look at top favorites in Ontario. All right. So we selected statistics. We went to top favorites. We put in a profile name. We selected Canada and Ontario, and then you click filter. This is generally how you get things to trigger in some of these tops and some of the tools. You click filter, and away it goes. And it comes
Hmm.
back, and it gives us a little graph of all the top favorited caches in Ontario. Number one being the Table Rock Earth cache in Niagara Falls. And you can see that a lot of these are green. Some of them are blue. If we were to keep scrolling, you would see some that are black. And basically what it means is green is means that the profile name that you've selected has found this cache.
Oh.
Blue means that the profile name has not found this cache. And if it was black, it would mean the profile name has not found the cache and it is either disabled or archived.
Hmm.
So quite a lot of information in here. And if we wanted to take a look, we'll just say, oh, well, I found the first 10, but I haven't found number 11. I can just click on this, and it's going to open up the GC listing on the Groundspeak website. So it's all linked. It's very easy to use. Point, click, and away you go.
Hmm.
All right.
Yep.
So that's just an example of one of the statistics that you can get from the statistics page. So that's a cache stat, right? So you can look at top elevation. You can look at caches in an area. There's just a whole bunch of things you can do. Explore this. There's a tremendous amount of information. A lot of people like the lonely caches statistic. So if they want to go find a cache that hasn't been found and see a year, you could go in here and say, okay, focus on Canada, Ontario, Peel region, and give me a list of all the lonely caches that I have not found.
Hmm.
And it would give you that list. I'm going to show one more from statistics. And Dave, if we're missing any questions, please let me know because I'm not watching the live stream.
They're quiet. They're there, but they're quiet.
They're absorbing.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. Why don't we look at top souvenir collectors? So this is a statistic about other people. And there's a whole group of these statistics in here, these find stats. This is all about finders, but you have the ability to go in and filter them. So let's look at, from Canada, who are the top souvenir collectors for people in Canada? Now, in this case, I had a profile name already in here. I had my profile name. So rather than starting at number one, it brings me right to the page that shows where I sit in this list. And you can see that's the red bar. So you can see that I'm currently number 92 in Canada with 228 souvenirs tied with Indigo Day. If I click on page one, it will go back and show me right from number one. So K5 Cents is number one with 346, and look who's number two, JT, 337, and our good friend RCA 777 is number four with just over 307. So the statistics tab is an incredibly powerful tool, and there's just a huge amount of information in here. Basically, things work the same way. If you're looking at Finder stats, what you're doing is you're putting filters in there by profile name, by the kind of people that you want to look for, like which country are they from, and in some cases, you can add another filter about where the caches are. So if we were looking at top finders, for example, we could say show not only people from Canada, but cache locations in another country. So we could say, all right, let's find out who the top finders are of Canadians who have found caches in the U.S. That would be an example. We're not going to do that right now, but we can certainly do that. So statistics is one of the main reasons that people use Project GC.
Yeah, you could go further and say, show me the top finders of people from Canada, from all of Canada, let's say, and then as you just clicked on there, the cache type.
Right.
Who is the top finder of large caches or traditionals or puzzle caches? So.
Let's see who the top finder of webcam caches is of people from Canada. It's Desafio.
Yeah, she did a great run in Europe.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And right behind her is our friend from Sweating to the Oldies, Eric, Sweat 31. So,
where's London Westie on that list?
Well, Dave, here's how we can find out where London Westie is on that list. We type London Westie.
He's sitting right in there.
Yeah. You set him up, I'll hit him out of the park.
You're right.
And as soon as we put your profile name in there, we see, oh, you're number 6.
Number 6.
Not only did we not have to look down this list, but it showed us with a red bar exactly that profile name.
Very nice.
So congratulations, you found quite a few.
I have. We would have found so many more if it weren't for 2020.
There you go.
Oh.
So just in summary, statistics about caches, about other finders, about various things is just a huge piece of Project GC and what a lot of people use it for.
Well, here's a question. It was Amy Mary was asking. Mine was about FTF and how to get them to show, and that was it when you were talking about the membership level. So non-membership, you can't see it, but as a statistics tab, you can look it up. But in order to see yours in your statistics, you'd have to become a paying member. So,
correct.
Yeah. So that's something to look to, Mary. But she says I'd be low on that list. I think that's for webcams. And then Steve Haynes says list after list showing how much I suck. Oh, come on, Steve. It takes time.
It's a list after list of showing you all the people who can give you insight into how to do better.
Yes, there you go. Yeah, something to strive for. Yeah.
All right.
I can't wait to travel to Canada and get some caches. Pizza Ninja. Yes, we can't wait for you to travel here too, because we want to go back over there.
So I'm going to move on from statistics, and I'm going to move into one of my favorite features of Project GC. This is under the Tools menu. So under Tools, there's a capability called Map Compare. You can see that there's all kinds of other tools in here, and again, I encourage people to explore this capability, like mapping a bookmark list. So that would take a bookmark list from geocaching, show it to you on a map. Map a hidden date. So if you're trying to find caches in a certain area that were hidden within a certain range of dates, you could use that map feature. But I'm going to start with Map Compare because it's a great introduction and it has a whole wide range of capabilities. All right. I've used this tool primarily to do trip planning. So in many cases, some of you might know that we have a group of geocachers in Peel region in Ontario. We call ourselves the Peelers. And I help organize, pre-COVID times, I helped organize trips, either single day or multi-day trips. And in some cases, we would have 3 or 4 or 5 people, maybe more. And when we were organizing it for a few people, let's say a get-together on a Saturday or a Sunday, it would become a real challenge to figure out which cache has person A found and which cache has person B found, because we didn't want to take everybody to caches that they had already found.
Yeah.
And this is what got me interested in Map Compare. You don't need to compare with other people. You can use Map Compare to just find caches. But what I'm going to do is first show you how I used it to do a little bit of trip planning. So in here, we can see we've already got my profile name, Dougie B. And what I'm going to do is say that I want to compare with, and I'm going to use the name of a local geocacher, Chris Baker. All right, so let's say Chris and I want to go out on a little caching afternoon tomorrow. So I've now got him in here as my compare to. We're not going to go far, so our cache location is going to be in Canada, Ontario, and in our case, Peel region. All right. We want to show caches that are none found. So I've unclicked one found, and I've unclicked everyone found. I'm also going to say any caches that he or I own in this region should be thought of as found. In other words, they're going to be excluded from our filter. Okay?
Yep.
And I'm going to do one more thing. I am going to say that we are only interested in traditional caches. So I added this filter called cache type and size and traditional cache. We don't have a lot of time, so we're not going to be interested in doing multis or solving puzzles or running a where I go. We're going to focus on traditional caches. You could add other filters about difficulty and terrain, cache type, size. You could put hidden dates. You could put a radius around a set of coordinates. There are all kinds of filters that you can add, but let's start with this. So we're looking for caches in Peel region of Ontario that Dougie B and Chris Baker have not found, and only traditional caches. And we click filter. And it comes up and it says there's 473 caches that neither of us has logged. It gives us this cool map. So I can use the map to now think about where we want to go. And at the bottom, it actually gives us a list. It says here's a tab called None Found. And it lists all the caches that neither one of us has found. And this is just an amazing tool. So if you tried to do this on geocaching.com, it would be much more difficult to look at an entire region. We could have done this for an entire province or an entire state as well, right? And
that's what I think is interesting about this, because you're doing it by region. I do this all the time with the geocaching.com search feature. The very similar thing, but I found that when I try to map it, it won't show me all the caches that are in the list. The only way I can see all the caches on the map is to create a list of them and then map the list. I don't know why it does that, but.
So this works in a bit of the opposite way. It shows you all the caches within the area, and coupled with a paid member feature called Virtual GPS that I hope to talk to you later, you could then select the caches that you want to put into a virtual GPS, and then you could export that to a bookmark list. So you could actually do it the other way around. But the point about this tool is it's a very powerful search tool, but it's graphical in nature. It's not list-based, right? It starts with a visual representation of whatever your filters are. So in this case, I could look down here and say, hey, look, there's a whole bunch of caches right down here that would be perfect because neither Chris or I have found them. And I can then add these to a projectgc virtual GPS, and off we go.
If give me a sec here, I'm going to share something as a comparison. I hope this works. Share screen. I'm going to Chrome tab there. Here, share. Now go back. Okay, so here we have. This is. I'm going to try to do this really quick. This is the geocaching.com website, the main page. So I'm going to type in. Hopefully this works. St. Mary's. Is it St. Mary's, Ontario with an apostrophe? I can't remember. Let's see if it works. St. Mary's, Ontario. Is that our St. Mary's? We'll find out in a sec. don't think it is. No. Okay. That map you didn't see. That was it ended up because it opened up on a new tab. Uh, Stratford, Ontario. Okay, so we're going to click that. So here I have 200 caches from Ontario, so I'm going to filter that. So this is basically what you were doing. So I'm going to say not found, caches I don't own, and then over here I'm going to put Sparky 500. We were caching like the other week, I think. So there you go. I click that, and then I hit search. So it gives me 41 caches. If I try to map it, you're not going to see it, but I can change the filters as well and go larger. So the difference there is it will give you a circle around whatever you do, but what you're doing for Project GC is giving you the whole region.
That's what I was doing in that case.
Yeah.
We could do something similar. If you want to give me back control,
Yep,
I'll
there you
show
go.
you. Okay.
Yep.
So let's go back into our filters. Let's indicate that our profile name is London Westy. We're going to remove Chris Baker, and we're going to put in Sparky 500.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to compare with Sparky. We're going to remove the location and the cache type size, but we're going to add a filter called center radius.
Oh,
So
okay.
while you were typing, I went to Google Maps and looked up Stratford, and I got the coordinates for Stratford. So I'm going to put in the coordinates for Stratford, and let's put in, say, a 20-kilometer radius. And we click filter.
And it always takes time.
It does take a little bit of time, so it's off.
Yeah.
It's off up there. You can see it going, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And it's probably because I've said none found, right, and owned is found. So it's actually looking at its database and then determining if it has all the information and if it needs to refresh anything from gc.com.
Yep.
And here we go. So it says there's 60 caches that neither of you have found.
Very cool.
Yep.
Kathy Laurie had a question, and
Hi,
then Brett
Kathy.
Mackey asked it. Map Compare looks great. Is there a limit to the number of cachers? And Brent Mackey answered, with a premium membership, you can compare against multiple others. With a free membership, you can only compare against one other.
Sorry, Kathy's question.
Her question was, is there a limit to the
Cachers.
number of cachers
Yes.
that you could add in your list?
Yeah. If you go into the membership tab that we looked at earlier, Kathy, it will tell you what those limits are.
Okay.
Right. So if you become a paid member, it'll tell you what the upper limits move to. So, Map Compare, an incredibly powerful tool. We're not going to get into all the capabilities of Map Compare today, and we're not going to get into some of the other capabilities that you can layer on top of Map Compare, but you could build a route. You could use the virtual GPS to create lists. You can do some incredibly powerful filtering, including a capability that we won't look at in much detail today, but there's these things called custom filters that you can build. Custom filters would be great if you wanted to look for a cache with a certain attribute or a certain combination of attributes. Right? So if you wanted to look for a cache that was a night cache only and had a beacon attribute on it, you can use custom filters to do that. Custom filters is a paying member feature. Okay. So Map Compare. Please, whether you're a paying member or a non-paying member, go in and explore with Map Compare. Think about something that you'd like to do with caching, whether it's, here's a great example. I signed into a challenge cache a few years back that said find 500 difficulty 1, terrain 1 caches. And at the time, I only had 172 of those. So whenever I was going out caching somewhere, I would come into Map Compare. Let me just clear these filters. And let's say that I was caching in Toronto. I would pull up Toronto. There's Toronto region. There we go. Unfound, owned as found. Let's remove that center radius. And difficulty in terrain, I would set to 1, 1. So whenever I was going out for a caching day, I would use Map Compare to go and look at that particular area to see, oh, are there any caches that I could find that would meet this criteria? It's a very powerful capability. So please, when you're thinking about your next caching trip, if you have half an hour or so, jump into Project GC and take a look at Map Compare and play around with the features.
Yep.
There are some filters that are premium only. So if you were to say look at custom filter, it does come up and say that's a paying member only filter. But even without the paying member only capabilities, it's still an incredibly powerful tool. Right? It's also one of the most basic features and one of the primary features, mapping, because there's all these mapping capabilities. Mapping is one of the reasons that people get drawn to Project GC in the first place.
Challenge checkers. I think
challenge checkers. So lots of people out there love challenge caches, but the question is, how do you figure out whether you qualify for that challenge cache or not? So there's several capabilities on Project GC to assist you with that. First, let's look at tools and challenge checkers. So this is a menu option. Now, I'm just going to pause for a second and remind everybody that I am in my account, which is a paying member account. I'm going to bring up my wife's account and bring up
just
the
Karen. Karen is just stepping in to say hello.
Hello, Karen.
Hello.
There we go. There we go.
Hi,
there you
everybody.
go. She is here. She is here.
How's you doing tonight?
Good. We got a number of people watching, and I think they're totally absorbed in this thing about Project GC, and I even learned a couple things.
Excellent. Well,
Yeah.
I just used a checker to to check my puzzle, so
Nice.
I'm all happy.
Excellent.
Cool. All right.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
Take care.
There we go.
So what
We're back.
I've done is I brought up my wife's non-paying account and selected challenge checkers. I just want to show everybody the difference between the two. So beyond the ads, I want everybody to focus right here where it says find checker and help. So as a non-paying member, I can go in and I can find a challenge checker. Let's look for one in Canada. So I put in a GC code. It happens to be one of my challenges, but I put in that GC code and it comes up and says, oh, it's called the Traveling Challenge Canada, and we can use that checker. So this is a non-paying account. We've come across a challenge cache. We want to know if we qualify. We come over to Project GC. We find the challenge checker for that cache, and we use it. When we use it, it comes up and says a new button that says Run the Checker. So we run the checker, and it says, well, unfortunately, Karen does not qualify. It gives us some information about her existing qualifications, but she doesn't qualify. If we go back to my account and bring in that same challenge checker and use it, and then run it, this is where it tells us that, in fact, I do qualify for this challenge checker. So a very powerful and very, very well-used feature of Project GC is to use the challenge checker capability to determine if you qualify for a given challenge. Now, a few years back, there were challenges out there that didn't have checkers in them. Like you had to figure it out on your own, and a lot of people use GSAC. Project GC started building this challenge checker capability, and volunteers would basically write scripts inside Project GC to figure out if you qualified for a challenge. Geocaching at one point said, you know what, we're going to pause challenge caches for a while and just take a look at them. And when they came back and re-enabled challenge caches, they said, all right, you now have to use a Project GC checker for anything that goes forward. If you want to make a challenge cache, if you want to publish one, you have to use a Project GC challenge checker. So this capability is now not only a value add, right, for anybody who uses Project GC, it's a must-have for anybody who publishes a challenge cache. So if you're thinking of publishing a challenge cache, please take a look at this capability, understand it. There's a Project GC forum that you can go to ask people to make challenge checkers for you, and they will.
Yeah. It's a free service. It's very easy to do. There's a tab on there somewhere, and what you have to do in order to get a checker made is you have to create the cache page first. They need the GC code from your cache page, and then exactly what you want the checker to do. I want a checker to find. Must have found 10 provinces in Canada, something like that. And then they'll deliver it to you within a few days. There was a question on here, and I think you alluded to some of this, and Brent answered some of it. David Stokes asked, I find some challenge caches are just about what the owner has done, not what the finder can do. Now, previous to the cutoff of the challenge caches where they put a moratorium on them, you could create a challenge that you yourself couldn't qualify for. So you could create a challenge cache that was very, very difficult for any number of people to do. But once the moratorium was lifted, they said that the cache owner must be able to qualify for the cache themselves before they can create the checker for it, or the challenge cache. So a lot of the challenge caches that I have that are on the 401 series, they are not easy. They're not for beginner cachers because they're based on a lot of travel. And that's why the ratings are so high. They're a high difficulty because it does take time to get there. So I think Brent alluded to that. It's not for everyone. We can create a challenge cache that's fairly simple. Have you found 100 traditional caches? Fairly easy. There are some challenge caches out there I don't qualify for, and I have, and Dougie, you have a lot of numbers as well. It takes time. So.
And it really depends on the nature of the geocacher creating the challenge and what geocaching is to them, what aspects of it they like. So
yeah.
we have a very prolific cacher in southwestern Ontario who creates quite a few challenge caches. This individual has tens of thousands of finds and huge number of FTFs and does paddle caching and tree climbs and travels all over North America. So they are able to create challenge caches that other people won't ever be able to do. It's based on them. I can point to this particular challenge cache that I have on the screen if you want to bring it back up, Dave.
Yep.
This particular challenge cache I have is called the Traveling Challenge. And it says you must have found a cache, a physical cache, so not a virtual and not an event, in one cache in at least three continents, excuse me. I was fortunate enough to be able to travel to both Europe and Asia a few years ago and was able to find some caches. But a lot of people don't have that opportunity. So the nature of a challenge cache is not about creating something that's for everyone. The nature of a challenge cache is about creating something that's representative of what you have achieved. Mm-hmm. But in Ontario, our reviewers have taken it one step further. In Ontario, we cannot get a challenge cache published unless we can find 10 other Ontario cachers who can meet the qualifications.
That's correct. That's a way of taking kind of the elitism out of it. A lot
Right.
of people have said is that, well, London Westy can do it, but no, I have to look for 10 other people that are able to do it as well. And to be fair, it's fairly easy. You take a look at the top 20 geocachers that have found total finds for Ontario, and you'll easily, within that top 20, you'll get 10 that'll satisfy that challenge, depending on the challenge.
Well, Dave, it's even easier if you're a paying member of Project GC. You can create a custom filter, for whatever attributes you're looking for, and then you can go into statistics, top finders, and search for that.
There you go.
Right?
Something I
So it would
didn't
come
know
up
that.
with a list and show you, here's
Yeah.
everybody and here's how many they
Huh.
found.
Wow.
Right? So again, a feature we're not going to show on the screen, but just understand, everybody, there is a huge amount of stuff that you can do with Project GC, and we're not going to be able to get to it all today.
Yep.
So we covered the challenge checker, find checker tab. All right. I'm going to switch back again to my non-paying profile, my wife's profile, and show you that it just shows find checker there. It doesn't have anything else. So what I'm going to be talking about now is a paying member feature, which is the map of challenge caches. So I'm going to click on this. This would be a tool that I would use if I wanted to go out and find challenge caches, but understand whether I qualify for them or not. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for a map of challenge caches in Ontario. I'm not going to select any difficulty or terrain or a cache name. I'm going to exclude any caches that are archived. And I'm going to show any caches that have a challenge in them, whether they have a checker or not. And we'll hit create map. Now keep in mind, Ontario is a very large place with a very large community of cachers. So it takes a few seconds for it to go out and create this map.
I've used this and I love it.
Yeah, and we're going to drill into this for a few minutes. If you are a challenge cacher, this premium feature, this paid membership feature is absolutely for you. This will ease your planning of what you qualify for and where it is and how to get to it. So let me scroll down into Hamilton. There's a lot of. Are you all actually doing stuff on Project GC right now? Because it seems a little slow. You must be following along. Into Hamilton. Here we go. Just let me scroll in a little bit more so that it's really clear. All right. So the reason I've chosen Hamilton is because, as I said earlier, we have a cacher who lives in that area who produces quite a few challenge caches. And everything that I wanted to show you about the challenge checker map is right here in this area. So what I've done is I've opened the challenge checker map for this area, and it's limited the display to only caches that are of the quote unknown/mystery type, and that either have a challenge checker in it or has the word challenge in the cache name. We're going to go through real quick and show you what different icons and colors mean here. So first, we can see that most of these caches have a green background behind the blue question mark, but there's a couple, like this one here and this one here, that have a yellow background. If I look at the GC number, and this one is GC2N E5H, I can see that it's a very old challenge cache.
No checker.
This yellow background means that there's no checker. All right. So we could go into the challenge description. We could figure out if we meet it or not. There's just not an automated way for us to determine if there's a checker.
There is. I'll interject there. There is usually, not usually, a lot of times when you go into a challenge cache that does not have a challenge checker on the description, if you scroll through the logs, you can use, a lot of times you can find something that says used Project GC. Click on that. Somebody has created a checker either for that one and it just never got added by the CO to the page, or they've found one that's doing the same parameters from somebody else's checker. So then you can use that. I always look for that.
That's a great tip. Yeah. So let's look at the ones that have the green background. There are a couple of different symbols on here that we'll go through. So let's look at this one here, this 2016 Mini Jasmer Challenge. So we can see that it has a checker because it's got the green background behind the question mark. We can also see that there's a green check mark. that means that I, Dougie B, qualify for this particular challenge. All right. If we move over to another one here, this half grid times 5 states, we see a red circle with a dash in it. That red circle means I don't qualify for it yet. We can see some caches that have a smiley, like this challenge, Roy G. Biv. The smiley means that I've already logged a find on that cache. And we can see some that have a little gray symbol in the top right corner. I know it's hard to read, but that's a note. That means that I've made a log on that cache, but it's a note. It's not a find. So this is a great tool for me to come in and look at and say, okay, well, if I'm going to be in Hamilton, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 caches that I qualify for in a very small area, and I haven't got any symbols on there indicating I've previously signed into them. So I would choose those caches to go and look for. All right. And I know that I already qualify for them because the checker comes up and says, you qualify.
Yep. We used that. We went down south once, and there, southern Indiana, I can't remember the name of the city, but there is a lot of challenge caches in that area, and I used this map to look at which caches we already qualified for, because we were limited in time. So there was like probably 200 challenge caches, way more than we could do within a 2 or 3 hour period. So I picked only the ones that we qualified for, just so I could have them, and then I added a few. Go, you know what? I'll get that soon. We could do that too. So
right.
Yeah, that's what it was awesome. It was really good.
It's also great if you're looking at something like a trail of challenge caches. So that's what I pulled up here, is the Kearney Challenge Trail, and you can very easily see I qualify, for a whole bunch of these. I don't qualify for a few. If you have limited time, you could choose, which ones you're going after and focus your search. Or you could simply skip the ones that you don't qualify for. Don't even put them into your pocket query for the day. Okay. So Dave, I just wanted to do a time check. We're at about an hour right now, and I have 3 more topics that I wanted to get into. Do we have time for those?
Yep. Yeah, I think we're doing good.
All right. So the challenge
I just wanted to mention, we're going to take a little break. I'm gonna play that little thing that I did before for the people that hadn't seen it, and we are going to run a contest at the very end. And Dougie B has already alluded to a few things that I've generated the answers for. So if you were paying attention, you should be able to get this pretty quick. So we'll be back in, I think, 40 seconds or so. So hang tight. I just wanted to play that for our folks at Project GC, as they've done a great job in allowing us to give away 3 one-year memberships to their program. So there we go. All right, last 3 subjects. We're at a minute, an hour, and 4. There we go. Next up.
So. One of the things that many of us like to do as geocachers is first to find, whether we are FTF hounds or whether we do it casually or purely by accident. We like to keep track of our first to finds.
Yep.
Project GC has a way for you to figure that out, and a way for you to keep track of it, and a way for you to see chronologically what your first to finds were. So first, let's go back into our profile stats. And again, this particular set of information is a paying member feature. So if you're a non-paying member, you won't have this FTF tab. So I click on FTF, and we get a little table, and it says that I found 116 FTFs. But here's an interesting question: how does Project GC know what an FTF is? Here's why I say that. It's really easy to figure out that the first person who logs a cache might be the FTF, but that's not always the case. I might go out and find a cache first and sign it, but not be able to log it later in the day. And by the time I get home, 1 or 3 or 5 other people have found it. So Project GC can't necessarily distinguish whether I am the first to find or not simply by the first log on any given cache. So what Project GC does is it gives you the ability to either tag a log entry in geocaching.com with a special tag that indicates an FTF, or it gives you ability to link to a geocaching bookmark list of your FTFs.
And I think this is alluding to Amy Mary's question. For the FTF, do you have to have in your log in a certain way?
So the answer to your question, Amy, is no, you don't.
Yeah.
You can do it one of two ways. You can have an entry in your log, and we'll show that in a second, or you could have a geocaching bookmark list of your FTFs, and we're going to show that too. Okay? So, show profile. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into profile and click this item FTF list. So this comes up, and let's select me and filter. You could put somebody else's profile name in there and see their FTFs, but this is my list of FTFs. So I selected my name, I clicked filter, and it says I have a total of 116 first defines. So let's show you the two ways that Project GC knows that this particular cache, for example, was an FTF. So let's open this cache. So this was the first FTF I ever had. I was living in Barrie, and I found this one in 2010. I was really excited when I found it, as it was my first FTF. And later on, I started using both a bookmark list and Project GC to look at my FTFs. So let's take a look at my log, first of all. So you can tell how long ago I did this because geocaching used to make a notation every time you edited an entry in a log. So I did find this in July of 2010, but you can see that I went back in September of 2015 and edited it. And what I did was I put this particular code in here. Now this just happens to be the code that I decided to use. There are 2 or 3 different codes that Project GC will use. And if I go back to Project GC and you look up here, it says here are the different codes that you can use to put in your listing. Right? So these are just annotations that you put in your log. And that's all I had to do. I then had to go into my settings once and say, okay, Project GC, this is the annotation I'm using. But then after that, whenever it goes out to look at my logs, if it's got this annotation in it, it adds it to my Project GC FTF list. It's as simple as that. So once I learned about this, I went back and updated all of my previous logs, and at the time there weren't a lot. And then going forward, every time I find an FTF, I just type that in into my log. So if we were to go down and look at the last entry in my FTF list, and look at my log, you can see that I typed it. Now what I've started doing is type that annotation, the FTF number, and the time.
Now, if you don't include that annotation, it might not pick it up.
Correct.
Right.
And
because my stats for my FTF is wrong, because when I first started, I didn't have an annotation at all. I think for the first 80 FTFs, and then I went back with had it listed on a Word document, and I went back and I looked them up and put the annotation in some of them, but not all of them. So my FTF list isn't correct.
So here's a way that you can fix that, and it's the second way to let geocaching know that you've got an FTF. And you don't need to use one or the other. You can use both these methods combined. You can use the annotation, and the next thing I'm going to show you, which is a bookmark list. So if you were to put those missing caches into a bookmark list, and then tell Project GC, this is my first defined bookmark list, it would look at both the annotations and the bookmark list and merge them together into a single FTF list inside Project GC. So we're going to scroll down in this cache listing to the section that says My Bookmark Lists. And you can see here that I've got one called IWHF by Dougie B, which is I was here first. So whenever I find a first to find, in addition to putting an annotation in there, I also add it to this geocaching bookmark list. All right? And inside Project GC, in my profile, I've told it this is the list that I used to identify first to finds. So Dave, if you have that list of GC numbers for your early first to finds, create a bookmark list, and then link it into your profile in Project GC.
And I don't think I do anymore.
Oh.
So well, it's a lot of work to go back and find.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for Mary, who had the question, Mary's last name, Amy, I'm sorry. Yeah. For Amy that had the question, you can put an annotation in, or you can maintain a book list on geocaching.com. You can tell Project GC that you're using that bookmark list, or that you're using the annotation, or both, and then it will not only maintain this list, but it will show it in your profile. Okay.
Yeah, nowadays it doesn't matter. When I do find an FTF, I put an annotation on there just to keep track of it. But as far as the list, whether I don't care. I know some people do. Some people are really that's their thing. For me, it doesn't matter anymore.
So one of the limitations of geocaching's bookmark list, and somebody's going to correct me on this. Brent, if I get this wrong, correct me, please. I think you can only have 1,000 entries in a geocaching.com bookmark list. It's either 1,000. There is a limit to how many entries you can have in a bookmark list. So if you were using bookmark lists, you'd have to use multiple bookmark lists. And you can tell Project GC that I'm using multiple bookmark lists. But if you use the annotation method, and then use Project GC to generate your list, it's very simple. You don't have to maintain a lot of geocaching bookmark lists. So let's look at a very prolific first to finder.
1,000 entries is correct.
Ooh, I remembered something.
Yeah, from multiple sources.
Yeah, let's look at Carnegrill's FTFs. This might take a while.
Yeah.
So it comes back and says Carnegrill has 4,232 first to finds. And if we can scroll through the whole thing, but basically what I want, and it's still updating. But I just wanted to show you that in Project GC, it doesn't have some of the same limits that geocaching has. So if you're using a bookmark list on geocaching.com, you're limited to 1,000 entries. So I know, for example, Brent also does quite a few first to finds. So we can look at Brent, bring him up. He's got more first to finds than a single bookmark list could handle. But if he was a Project GC paying member, he would come in and say, oh, I've got 1,870 first to finds, and they're all here in this one list. All right. I'm going to skip into the settings section for just a minute to show you where you would indicate to Project GC what you're doing. So I'm just going to scroll down here. Did I miss it? I did. All right. So site settings, FTF bookmark list. So it says, okay, here's all the bookmark lists that I have, and here's what I'm using as my FTF lists. So if I was Brent and I had 2 FTF lists going, I could add a second bookmark list here, and Project GC would use that. All right, so Amy, if you're a paying member of Project GC, come into your settings, go down to the FTF bookmark list, add it here.
If you're checking for free, try Chief Scout. Yeah, apparently he's not a paying member. All right, David, we'll look into it.
All right. So FTF information, a lot of us are very interested in FTFs. This is a way to manage your FTFs in a coherent fashion. So not only does it show up on your profile stat on Project GC, you can, as we just showed, go into the FTF list feature and show all your FTFs, and they are in chronological order. So
I got to share a screen for you in a minute. Hang on a sec before we go any further. Let me see. Here we go. Share. If you can see, the number one in Ontario at 7,223 first to finds is El Nimrod. Carnegie Rule is running second. And our friend in the chat, BWJM, is doing very well at number 8. 1,870 FTFs.
These are people who have much more time on their hands than I do. There you go.
All right.
Excuse me, FTF.
Back to your program.
FTF. So again, a feature that has just a lot of insight into that particular stat, and you can do a lot with it. Now here's a feature that I'm going to talk about that you may not consider to be a basic feature of Project GC, but I wanted to introduce it to everybody today. It is a paying feature. It's called Virtual GPS. But when I finally realized what Virtual GPS could do, it was actually a game changer for me with Project GC. And I'll tell you why. Virtual GPS, so it's up here in the top right corner. It looks like a GPS with a green screen. In some ways, it's like a geocaching bookmark list, but it actually has a lot more power than that. So let's take a look at one of my virtual GPS lists. It's called Virtuals Found by Doug E.B. Okay. So this is a virtual GPS list that from time to time I come in and maintain. And it's intended to be a list of all the virtuals that I've found. And, you know, call me anal or whatever, I like to keep track of that. But I also like to keep track of it on geocaching. So let's go into my profile on geocaching and look at my lists. And look at my lists. And virtuals found by Doug E.B. So you can see that I've got a list right here. It has 327 caches in it. All right. And when we look at Project GC, we go down here right to the bottom, and it says we have 327 caches in the virtual GPS. So that looks like it's aligned, right? 327, 327. But if I were to go into my profile and look at my my number of virtual caches that I've found. So we can see that I've actually found 346 virtual caches. So there's a discrepancy there. I really like my geocaching bookmark list, but it's out of date. My bookmark list says I have 327, and my profile says I have 346. Now I have to go and find 19 caches, virtual caches, and add them to my bookmark list. Well, that's kind of a pain. my virtual GPS list is also out of date, and I don't want to go and find them and just add them manually. So I'm going to show you one of the most powerful features of virtual GPS combined with map compare that we looked at earlier. So we're going to go into map compare. And what we're going to do is we're going to find every virtual cache that I have found anywhere in the world. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the country so that we're looking throughout the whole world. We're going to look for one found. We're going to remove that difficulty in terrain. We're going to add the cache type virtual. Virtual. And we're going to add one more filter. We're going to show disabled and archived. So we're looking for anything by DougieB found by DougieB anywhere in the world that's a virtual, regardless of whether it's active, disabled, or archived. Okay. We click filter. Now it comes up right away and says 346, and that aligns immediately with the number of caches, virtual caches in my profile. So that's a great sign. But how do I now get that into my bookmark list? Well, really simple. We had already, up here you can see, we had already selected the virtuals by DougieB, virtual GPS, so it's already enabled up here in Map Compare. I scroll down here and I click on this tab that says DougieB found, and it now lists all the virtuals that I found. I select them all and I click add to that virtual GPS icon. You see it moved that little box up there. Now it says I've got 346. Wow, that was so easy. But it's still not on geocaching.com. So let's go into the virtual GPS. All right, it's thinking, it's loading. We can now see at the bottom that there are 346 in here. And what I can do is I can export this to a bookmark list. Now, these are sorted by the last time I looked at them or made entries to them, so I have to find my virtual. Just bear with me a minute. I'm sure it's here. There it is, virtuals by DougieB. And very important, I have this checkbox enabled, said ignore already existing. So I export this. And if I go back in and refresh my geocaching.com lists, we can now see that my geocaching list has 346. So it took a little bit longer because I was explaining it, but literally in a matter of minutes, I was able to update a bookmark list on geocaching.com by using a search feature in Map Compare on projectgc and the virtual GPS capability on projectgc to export to a bookmark list. There are lots of applications for this, right? Not just keeping track of you know, how many virtuals Doug has found. I'm sure that you can think of a number of ways to leverage this virtual GPS capability as it relates to bookmark lists on geocaching.
Yeah.
Right? So think of the virtual GPS as kind of like a bookmark, and kind of like literally a virtual GPS. It's this capability to store stuff inside projectgc that is specific to a situation. So if we were doing a road trip all across the country, you know, we could go in and look at a certain area and Map Compare and add to the virtual GPS, and then we could look in another area of Map Compare and add to the virtual GPS, and we could just keep doing this. And all of a sudden, we have a virtual GPS of our road trip.
Mm-hmm.
But
very nice.
That's the virtual GPS. We all know that many of us use real GPSs when we're out in the field. So, you know, one way to deal with this would be to export it to a geocaching bookmark list and then create a pocket query on geocaching.com. take that pocket query and load the GPX file from it into your GPS. That's a way that many of us would do.
Yep.
But another incredible feature of Project GC's virtual GPS is that you can export to a GPX file. So right here, if I click on export, I can build a GPX file within Project GC. So there's a number of reasons that you might want to do this. One of them is there are limits on geocaching.com as to how many pocket queries you can run on any day. There's no similar limit.
Yeah, I think there's
Right.
5, I think.
I think it's 10.
Or is it 10? No? Okay.
Yeah. But there's no limit here. And if you're a premium member, you can actually ask for these to be, if you're a paying member on Project GC, you can ask for these to be done as high priority. So you can complement what you're doing on geocaching.com with pocket queries by leveraging virtual GPX to build a GPX file. So Dave, if you were headed out for a week-long road trip and you wanted to get the most accurate, up-to-date cache information, but you had more than 10 pocket queries to run the night before your trip, you could run those pocket queries on geocaching and then run the rest of them, right? Build a virtual GPS on Project GC and build the GPXs from there. So it's a great complement.
Wow.
But there's another reason to use it. And when I use my Garmin Oregon now, most of the time I will build a GPX on Project GC. And here's why. When you think about a pocket query from geocaching, you build that pocket query and it has 5 logs in it, right? The last 5 logs from that geocache. When we go in here into the virtual GPS, we can actually change the number of logs that we want to appear in our GPX. So this is really important if you're in the field and you don't have a phone, if you're using your GPS and you want to look back at logs to see, hints, clues, information. You can go back beyond more than 5. I usually select 10, but you could select as many as you want, up to 100. So this is a great feature because you can now enrich the data that appears in your GPX file and on your GPS.
Wow.
Another really cool feature is this one here that says Add Garmin Improvements. So let's just click on the little question mark. It says adds extra data in a fake log so that you can see attributes and favorite points in your GPS. So what it would do if you selected this is the very first log entry, so let's call it log entry number 0, would be generated by Project GC, and it would, in text, tell you what all the attributes are associated with that geocache, and it would tell you how many favorite points are assigned to it. So for anybody who uses a Garmin handheld GPS, you know that when you look at the cache listing, you don't see attributes, you don't see favorite points. This is a way to get that information into your handheld. I can't tell you how many times in my early days of using geocaching pocket queries, I would get out in the field and wouldn't have realized that a hide was a tree climb because I couldn't see the attributes on my Garmin. Right? With this, I can. All right. So a very, very powerful capability of virtual GPS is to build a GPX file. I'm not going to build one right now. I could click build. I could tell it that because I'm a paying member that I want this to be a high priority. And if I did that, it would ask me to enter a CAPTCHA just to prove that I'm not a robot.
Yep.
Generally, it takes 10 minutes or less to build a GPX file. Sometimes it might take a little bit more, depending on how big it is. And once it's built, I get an email, and there's also some queuing information. Let me just show you up here. Towards the top right, there's a queue. You can see the hourglass and 0 jobs in queue, 0 jobs ready. So once it was ready, it would say, my job is ready. I would go in there and just download it like I would a pocket query. Amazing feature.
Nice.
Right.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of information. So we've been at this for an hour and a half, and I think you've got information left for another show?
So I do. Let's real quick. I'm just going to throw out some other features there that people might want to take a look at,
Okay.
and that we might want to dig into. We may want to dig into some of these features we talked about in more depth, or we may want to dig into some of these other features. But real quickly, just a few of the other features that Project GC has. There's a friends capability, so you can identify who your geocaching friends are on Project GC, and then when you look at stats, they will be highlighted in a different way. So they'll be highlighted apart from all the other geocachers. So that's a neat feature. New cache notifiers. This is a great feature. So you can actually set up the ability for Project GC to tell you about new caches uh, in a much different area than geocaching does. So, for example, I have a new cache notifier for virtual caches in all of Ontario. If I tried to do that at geocaching.com, I'd have to create multiple notifiers, but in Project GC, it's one notifier. Custom filters, very cool feature that allows you to create filters that are based on attributes and cache owners and all kinds of other criteria. That's a paying member feature. Route builders. So this is a great planning tool. You can just like you can in geocaching, you can build a route that then gets layered into something like Map Compare or your challenge checker map, and gives you the ability to take a look at the caches that are nearby whatever route you're taking. Travel bug rescue. There used to be a standalone website called tbrescue.com. A few years ago, Project GC inherited or absorbed that capability. So they have a capability where you can go in and say, hey, I've got a travel bug that's stuck in this cache. And if there's somebody who's watching that area on Project GC, they could choose to accept the mission and try and go and rescue that travel bug. Needed found dates. Many of you are looking to fill up your calendar, with caches found by month or caches found by date. There is capability in Project GC to determine which dates you still need to find caches on, or if you're looking to do loops. So let's say you want to find 5 caches per day. For every calendar day, you can set that threshold, and it will tell you which days you need to find caches on in order to get that threshold. You can even export an ICS file that you can load up into your calendar on your phone, and it would give you a reminder for each of those dates. And the 360 degrees from home. So this is a very nice feature. Some people like to fill up their map and say, I've found a cache in each of the 360 degree radius, 360 degrees around my home. And this capability shows you where you need to find caches. And again, for loops, if you want to say I need 2 or 3 or 7 caches on each of those degrees. These are just some of the other features that Project GC has. This session was really intended as a very high-level introduction to some of the more key features. I did not cover all of the basic capabilities.
Yeah,
and
there's a lot.
And we did not drill into the depth of a lot of this stuff. So I encourage you all to get onto Project GC and just play around with it.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I did want to mention, for those of you on Facebook, Dave, am I still sharing? Can you?
Yep, there you go.
There we go. If you're on Facebook, there is a Project-GC 101 group. All right, this is a private group, but you can go in there and ask questions related to Project GC. So this is a very helpful resource if you get stuck or if you have a question. Additionally, there are Project GC forums. So in Project GC, I'm missing the forum. I can't see it right now, but I'm sure somebody will point it out. I've been at this too long and I can't find it, but there is a Project GC forum where you can go into the forum and ask questions, get answers, interact with not only other users, but also some of the ambassadors and developers of Project GC.
Okay.
There we go.
All right. we'll remove that. Wait a minute. There we go. So, okay, so we have for our people that are watching live have an opportunity to win one of three. And what Project GC has done is they've given me a cumulative amount of months onto my membership. And then I just have to give that or adopt that over to another paying or another member. So I'm able to give 12 months each to three different people. So what we've come up with was a bunch of questions. So Doug, we're going to need your help. Can you see the comments?
No, I have. So I can't.
You might have to do it on another tab under YouTube.
Oh, here we go. It's in the studio. I didn't see that. There we go. Yeah, let me just put on my main
comments.
My main
so
screen.
I'm gonna ask three questions, and whoever gets the answer first that we see, and then we'll try to confirm it, will win the 1 year membership. And you can only win once. So once you've done it, and if you won, don't try to play for another one and spoil it for somebody else. So one per person. So the first question, and this was all covered tonight by Dougie B. The first question is for you to go into Project GC. So make sure everyone has Project GC on their computers and ready to go. And if you need
you're authenticated.
Address, and you're authenticated, yeah. So hopefully everybody has done that. Otherwise, you're behind the 8 ball already. So there you go, projectgc.com with a hyphen there. If you just typed in a search for Google Project GC, it should come up. And then you authenticate yourself and get in there and authenticate. There you go. Make sure you authenticate. That's right. Doug, he says, be sure to use live chat, not top chat. Yeah.
So for those of you who are watching, when I'm working with Dave, I'm actually in a studio, and on my PC, I am not watching YouTube. And what I didn't realize is that in the studio, there's a comments tab. So I now have seen that, and I have the actual live chat. So thanks for that tip, Brent. I have everything now.
Okay, so I'm going to give you the first question, and here it. Oh, we're going to get rid of that. There we go. So the first question is, give us the geocaching name of the top finder for all of Canada. And a bonus is, how many geocaches has that person found? There you go. And we'll be watching the chat to see who gets that first. And Doug, while you're watching that, I'm going to set up the next question.
I don't know how everybody else is doing tonight, but Project GC has slowed down quite a bit this evening.
I see a comment. El Nimrod. No. Wait a minute.
So the question was, again, Dave, repeat the question.
Yep. The top finder.
From Canada. From
Canada, yeah. Did I do that wrong?
So we have Roger Sanderson, who's answered the question, Joyce 13, with 110,699 finds.
There you go.
Right. So Roger, that's the first one that came through. You got that right. The people who are finding El Nimrod may have been looking for caches in Canada, right? Yes. So not the cache are from Canada, but caches in Canada. But that wasn't part of the question. But good on you for using that filter feature.
Yeah. So Roger Sanderson, congratulations, I believe, has got that before anybody else. And El Nimrod, we had that listed, and he was the first. He's the top FTF finder. Yeah. So there you go. Woohoo! There you go, Roger. I'll be in contact with you. We're on Facebook together, and we'll get figuring out how to get that to you. And just give me a little bit of time to get that going. Okay. So get rid of that. Question number 2, is everybody ready? So Amy says, I tried to look it up and found signal. There you go, FTF from PEI, yes. So the next question, okay. Doug did cover this, and I think he didn't say the exact same thing, but he said you could do this. So you're going to be going into, I know we're going to give you a clue, you're going to be going into geocaching stats, okay? So I want to know the cache name of Dougie B's highest elevation cache.
So a hint, profile stats.
Profile stats.
It's under the statistics drop-down menu. Statistics, profile stats. But I won't tell you how to find my profile. You have to figure that part out yourself.
And Dougie B is a capital D-O-U-G-Y, capital B. Dougie B.
And hopefully people remember that little tip that I said. Don't press enter in that box. Select from the drop-down list.
Yep. So his highest elevation cache. I would like the name of the cache. The bonus question will be how many meters above sea level it is. I think I see it from Brent.
Brent
He's
has
quick.
the correct answer, 1,663 meters. The cache is GC1K G33 Old Spanish Trail in Nevada, United States.
Cool. Very good. Okay, congratulations, Brent. He's always in there trying to get it. Now, Roger and Brent, they can't enter again. Although you can try to look it up. I'm sure you'll be able to find it. Just let me give us some trivia there, Dougie, or any other observations while I add this question in.
Well, for those of you who are interested in this particular cache that I found, that Brent pulled up, I was at a conference in Las Vegas at the time, and the conference ended, and I rented a car and decided to drive from Vegas to Death Valley. And this, along with a nearby virtual, was the highest elevation cache that I have ever found. Coincidentally, the lowest elevation cache that I ever found, which is also a stat in Project GC, was on the very same day in Death Valley at minus 74 meters.
Nice. That's one of the things that you could use if you wanted to create a challenge cache and you just looked up your own stats. So you look up all your own stats and then you can see what you've done. From there, you can develop a challenge cache of your own. And as long as you say, Dougie B could say, you can log this challenge if you have found a geocache that is greater or less as high as 1,500 meters. So he's exceeded that. So if you found one that was 1,492, sorry for your tough luck. You should have jumped higher or something.
Walked up the trail a little farther.
Yes, yeah. Oh, here's a side story for you. Early on in our geocaching career, Lyric Lass and I went to Jasper, and we did the cable car up to the mountain. We found the geocache that's at the bottom. We went to the very top, and it was a virtual cache, I think, and I was using a Garmin Nuvi. It's for your car. That was my GPS unit, and I couldn't quite figure out where they wanted you to go, and I knew you needed to see some thing that showed you the mountains. It was a circular thing, and it identified all the mountains. Well, we didn't go to the next peak. It was a walk. It was like a little bit of a bump over. I thought we were in the highest spot there was. And we went, I logged it, and I just tried to lie my way out of it. But the cache owner said, you didn't get it, and you know you didn't get it. And I had to delete it. So we were on top of the mountain, but I didn't get that virtual. Someday, we'll go back again.
We just got a comment from Brent saying he just reviewed his Project GC membership for another 5 years. So good on you, Brent.
6 years.
Well, I know Brent, and I know that he's a Project GC power user, so he will get his value out of that, no doubt.
Okay, so that question is done. We'll remove that. Now, the next question. This is for people we have a high Canadian audience right now, I think. This is for people from Canada. We would like to know the number 9 finder from Canada of webcam caches. Who is the geocacher from Canada who is number 9th in the list of finding webcams? So not just webcams in Canada, webcams from all over the entire world. And who is number 9? Is it London Westy?
No.
No, it's not. I'm close.
You're very close.
Yes.
Brent says he's at number 14. He is correct.
Mm-hmm. He's up there. I would have been a lot higher if it hadn't been for COVID.
So the first hit is that you're looking under statistics, top finders. GT Buzz 82 says DeSafio at 94. Well, DeSafio is actually number 1. She's not number 9. We're looking for the number 9 finder.
London Westy is number 6.
Oh, we missed it. Right after Brent said he's number 14, Ball King 649 said Lyric Class, and that is correct.
Yes, correct, right there. Okay, good.
Brent, thanks for pointing that out.
All right, Balkingham 649, awesome. Send me an email at londonwesty@gmail.com. Otherwise, I don't know how to get a hold of you, so send me an email to that, londonwesty@gmail.com, and then I will get in touch with you.
Hey, Dave, if you want to share my screen, Amy says she doesn't know how to find it. I'll really quickly show everybody how to find that one again.
Yep.
Let me know when I'm sharing. There we go.
Yeah, you are, yep.
Okay, so in Project GC, under statistics, top finders, we're looking in Canada. We don't care about the cache location. Let me just remove this and show you how I added that. You add a filter of cache type and size, and you select webcam and click filter. And once you've done that, it brings up the list. You just go down and look at number 9, who's Clear Class.
Yep.
Okay?
So show them the top finder in Canada.
Sure.
So we'll go through each of the 3.
Sure. So again, we're in top finders. So I just went back to filters. We're in top finders, no profile name, only people from Canada, and we leave the cache location empty. And there we have it.
Yep.
All right. And the other one was my top elevation. So under statistics, profile stats, you would go in and add my name and then select it from the list and get the profile. And here's a shortcut. I use find to look for elevation. And right here it says highest elevated cache found at 1,663 meters, the Old Spanish Trail, GC 1KG33.
There we go. Whoa.
Yeah.
What was
yeah,
that?
Stop sharing my screen. I've got the studio up on my screen.
All right, hang on. We'll remove that. There we go. Awesome.
All right.
So yeah, I think Steve Haynes. Yeah, he came in. He thought he had it, but it was just a little bit after. And they're both at 9:47. So very good. So sorry, Steve. Hey, who said Lyric Class right before Balkingham? No, yeah, it's just after. Here, I don't know if I can show you this. Hang on a sec. I'll do. No, I can't.
I can do it. Just give me a sec.
Yeah. Oh, no, maybe I can. I could share my own screen, right?
Well, I can use the snipping tool.
There. Share. Right there. Right there. Yeah, I've got it right here. It says
Yep.
Balkingham and then Steve Haynes right there on the right. Okay, remove. There we go. All right. Yeah, we do. I have made mistakes in the past. It's really hard to make. You got to make sure you're on the live chat to do it. I have made mistakes in the past, so this is you really got to be watching to make sure we get the right one. So anyway, yeah, Lyric Lass has done very well. There was a couple of webcams that she didn't quite get to. She was late in her logging, and they got archived before she was able to log them. I logged them, but she couldn't because they were already archived by the time she got to them. So she's a little bit behind. But yeah, I am tied with Indigo Dave, also from Ontario, at number 5 and 6 with 71. And I just need a few more, and I can go up to Kayak Lady 52. You know, I would have had, if it weren't for COVID, I would have had Delaware, Washington, D.C., I think the one in New Jersey, whatever. There's 3 there around that area, maybe 4. And for Washington, for the Geo Woodstock, one of our trips, I was looking at 9 webcams from Washington. Can't get there's more than 9, but was trying to get the way to get the most I could within that short period of time. So
Well, you could use Project GC and Cachetour to figure out your best route to do that.
best route, yeah. I had it over a couple of different trips, but maybe 2022, yeah. So there we go. All right, so thank you everybody for coming along and watching, and those people that are watching later. We hope you get something out of it, and thank you, Doug, for showing us that.
Oh, it's my
And,
pleasure. I really enjoyed doing this, Dave, so thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. If anybody does have feedback, please feel free to post in the YouTube. We try and watch that for questions, or send me an email directly, dougieb.gc@outlook.com, or dougieb geocaching message.
Okay, yeah, everybody, thank you very much, and we're going to put out a little outro here as a thank you, and we will see you all. Doug, stay with me there. Banners, we'll get rid of that one there. Thank you to Project GC for all the awesome work that they do, and we bid everybody a good night, and we'll look forward to another Cache Canada Chats. I think the next one we have, I heard a couple of hints, there's going to be some more Cache Tour. So stay tuned. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Good night.